Good morning and thank you for joining us at this webinar, which is looking at how we can improve outcomes for advice service users. The webinar is being jointly delivered by representatives from the Improvement Service and Inverclyde Council. In the room this morning, I am here obviously. My name is Karen. I have my colleague Johanna. We both work in the Improving Outcomes team. We also have Alan from Inverclyde Council, and providing technical support is a member of our Knowledge Hub team, Lynn. Lynn will deal with any technical issues that might arise. So if you have any problems with sound, or in the course of the webinar you have any questions you want to ask us, please use the box on your right hand side to put them forward or to raise any concerns that you might have. The webinar really follows on from a paper that we did for elected members earlier this year, where we tried to make the case for continued investment in advice services. We also made various recommendations about how the future of advice services might be reviewed, and that consideration should be given to perhaps improving the access that people have to services through increasing channel choice, and also the way that services are actually delivered. To really just recap on what we highlighted in this paper, that advice services can play in addressing poverty. And you have the quote before you on the slide. They do this in two ways in debt restructuring, but there are also many other financial benefits that people experience as a result of advice services, retaining and improving housing, securing employment, maintaining relationships, and improved health and educational attainment for children. There are many, many varied benefits that advice services deliver. We know from data that we collect for our Common Advice Performance Management reporting framework that about a third of individuals who are actually accessing advice services are amongst the poorest people in our community and have an income, a household income of less than £6,000. We also know that for every pound invested by councils in advice services, service users actually make a financial gain of between £4 and £9. And perhaps it's worth contrasting that with some research that was conducted by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, which suggested that for every £1, that for £1 out of every £5 that's invested by local authorities is required to address the damage caused by poverty. So it really makes sense to try and reduce the requirements for that investment in poverty solutions by investing in advice services. We know that demand is rising and resources are reducing, so we need to look at different ways of delivering and accessing advice. There is now a recognition at national level of the role that advice services can play in addressing poverty. And as you may be aware, the Child Poverty Scotland Act placed a duty on health boards and local authorities to work together to produce local child poverty action reports, which specifically ask to reflect on action that's taken to facilitate access to advice services for pregnant women and families with children. The Improvement Service hosts the National Coordinator's post for that, and her contact details are there in front of you if you have any questions in this regard. We're now going to go on and consider what research has been undertaken by the Improvement Service and look specifically at some of the work that we've undertaken on customer journey. So I'll pass over to my colleague to introduce that topic.
Thank you, Karen. So I thought I would start off by just looking forward a bit at advice services, and I've included a quote here from the Money Advice Trust Research on Debt Advice Channel Strategy that says that the future of channels and service strategies should be driven by evidence of what works and by the consumer, rather than being shaped by the existing sector structure or specific funding models. And this is really what we try to do with this piece of research. We know that advice services are increasingly required to do more, and the trends indicate that this is just going to continue going forward. We know that advice services are continuing to review the way they deliver advice to make sure that they make the best use of resources. And we also know that service users' expectations are changing with technology, and going forward, service users will have different demands on the services that they access. So I'm now going to move on to talk a bit about the research that we have carried out on customer journey mapping in advice services. So for those of you who might not be familiar with customer journey mapping, it's about walking in the shoes of your client to find out how they interact with your service and where this works well and where there might be some scope for improvement. I have tried to illustrate that in this slide here. For those of you who are familiar with process mapping, customer mapping is quite similar to that. The difference is that you're looking at the client and the kind of feelings and emotions they go through when they're accessing a service. So often the client will start out at a neutral experience, but throughout their journey, they will go through different types of emotions, and these will range from positive experience and emotions to negative experience and emotions. And what's important when looking at the customer journey is to pick out these key moments of truth where it's crucial to get the service delivery right to make sure that the client doesn't disengage with your service. So moving on to what we did and how we did it. The aim was to explore how individuals access advice using different channels. We also wanted to identify which steps are the most likely to contribute to positive outcomes for service users. Karen and I went out to the Glasgow Advice and Information Network and identified a few key stakeholder organisations to work with. We ended up working with 5 organisations from Glasgow and 1 organisation from Edinburgh. In total, we consulted 48 clients and 15 staff, and we did this through structured one-to-one interviews, focus groups, telephone interviews, questionnaires with both clients and staff. So what were the key findings from the research? Well, looking at improvement areas, we found that sometimes there was a lack of information on what to expect from the service. I've included quite bad photo here, but it was a good example from Money Matters, where they had an information sheet in the drop-in service that told the service user what they could expect when they came into the service. We also found that in some services there was perhaps a problem with the waiting area in terms of not having enough seats for people with mobility or health issues. There might not be access to toilets or water that you would need if you're having to queue for a few hours. We also found that there was sometimes an issue with the ticketing systems or the triage at some of the drop-in services, where service users weren't really clear on what was going to happen or what to expect. We also found that there was sometimes not a very easy access to the service, and that includes both waiting times for appointments that could sometimes be up to 8 weeks, but it could also be that the services weren't located in an area that was easily accessible for the clients. So moving on to the good practice that we found across all organizations that we work with that clients found the staff to be very helpful, knowledgeable, and they were very happy with the advice that they received. They found that they got clear communication of the actions that were required through the process. They also found the advices to be non-judgmental. From the delivery models that seemed to work really, really well, we found that they were generally accessible in the community. This could be through embedded models like libraries or GP practices, but the key was that they were available locally if they were delivered face-to-face. We also found that the really good models often offered channel choice. So the client's first contact with the service might have been face-to-face or through telephone, but throughout their journey, they might use different channels. And that included telephone, but even texting and emailing as well. We also found that timely appointments was important. And having timely appointments often reduced the pressure on the drop-in services and also meant that the client in the end was more satisfied with the whole process. We also found an important aspect in partnership working, and this was particularly in the embedded models where advisors were located perhaps in a GP practice, a health centre or a library. And we found that that relationship between link workers, GPs and advisors really helped to provide that kind of holistic approach, and service users tended to be more satisfied with the service. So one of the big aims of this research was to look at channel choice. We're currently analysing the data for the Common Advice Performance Management Framework, where we have an indicator on the channels that service users use to contact advice services. The returns from this year indicate that the vast majority of clients will contact services using face-to-face, 65%. A large proportion will also use telephone, and a very, very small percentage will use a website or web chat. However, as part of our research, we mainly looked at service users accessing face-to-face advice. However, we did ask them what kind of channels they would choose if they had a choice, and a large proportions would still require face-to-face as expected. 40% of the service users included in the research indicated that they would only use a face-to-face service. We also had about 36% who would use a telephone. And what surprised us the most was that we had 44% of clients who indicated that they would actually prefer or would also use a web chat service. We also found that service users that did access face-to-face advice quite often had tried the different channels but had maybe ran into some difficulties. For example, they might have used a telephone line but had no response, or were awaiting call back and would not receive that call back. So this is also something that was quite interesting for us to know. There's tend to be from this data a little bit of a disconnect from what clients would like and the advice that is being offered. So in an attempt to bring together all this good practice that we found across all these organizations, we've created an ideal customer journey here. There'll be a lot of different ideal customer journeys, but this is just one way to kind of sum up what we found from the research we've carried out. So we've got the client John at the start here, who's really worried about paying his bills. He is then going out to seek help, and we found from our interviews that most service users seem to be able to find the information they need, either from friends and families, from support workers, or information leaflets. And this is the first moment of truth when John decides to seek help. And if he can't find the information he needs, he might disengage. But this seems to be a step in the process that is working quite well across the organizations that we've worked with. John will then proceed to make contact with the service, and we found what works well, and I think I touched on this earlier, is for face-to-face advice to be community-based so that it's easily accessible to John. If he decides to go for telephone, that this is responsive and that he knows what to expect from the service. And finally, for web chat, that it's responsive, and we've also found that it's important that it's personalized so that people find that they're getting that personalized advice on the other side. The key to this is that clients want choice, and different delivery models will work for different people. Moving on to the second stage of receiving help, the key again is that there's the choice, and just because John chose to have a face-to-face appointment the first time doesn't mean that moving further along the process, it might be more appropriate to use telephone or web chat. So what we found to be crucial at this step is, again, that the service is accessible in the community, but also that the clients receive expert advice. And we have found this across services. This seems to be an area that is working really, really well. and the same is true for telephone and web chat. I've added in a little bit about expectation management on the web chat, and this is something that some of the staff we consulted highlighted to us, that sometimes with technology we expect a very quick response, and it's about managing those expectations as to what clients can expect from a web service. So at the final stage, John has received help, and in an ideal customer journey, he will be happy with the support he's received, and he will feel comfortable and confident and know where to turn in the future. And we also found, I've included below here a quote from the advisors, and what we found in the models that work really well is that the fact that clients can use different channels make them more likely to engage with the service. So that is the key findings from the research so far. I'm now going to hand over to Alan McIntosh from Inverclyde Council.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Johanna. Okay, this presentation is one I was actually initially, it's an abbreviated version of our presentation I delivered what was the first meeting of the Digital Money Advice Working Group, which was set up and held a couple of months ago in the offices of Money Advice Scotland. And really the idea about this came about really because Inverclyde Council has now been it's been basically given funding from the Scottish Local Aid Board to start a pilot project, a pilot digital advice project. This came about as part of an enhanced funding that became available in January. And we had put in, and it's, I suppose, inspired with the ideas and some of the recommendations that had been in the Peter Wyman report, which was about channel shifting and moving clients onto different channel advice delivery channels such as digital. And so when the funding came available, we put in an application for funding for digital advice, and we were successful in getting that, and it was funded by the Scottish Legal Aid Board until the 31st of March 2019. And that funding has pretty much allowed us now to employ a full-time digital advisor who's in post and to basically install digital advice onto Inverclyde Council's website. The actual advice chat, we didn't have any inbuilt chat into inbuilt into the Inverclyde Council's website, so we had to use a private company, and we used a company called Click for Assist who relatively cheaply were able to provide us with a chat service that we were able to embed into the Inverclyde Council's website. That's now available on our advice and benefits section of the website. We didn't put it on the entire website because if we did, we obviously realised we'd be getting lots of questions about basic skills and council tax, how people can pay their council tax, etc. And we didn't want to attract all that sort of queries, so we've just restricted it at the moment to the advice and benefits section of Inverclyde Council. We also have now installed benefit calculators onto the website, which is provided by Entitled To. And what we've done with Entitled To is we discussed the possibility of installing our chat onto the benefit calculator. The reason being is the Entitled To website is actually the Entitled To benefit chat. The benefit calculator is actually an external site to Inverclyde Council's, although it looks very much like Inverclyde Council's website. And so one of the features we've been able to use with the Click for Assist software is we could install our chat service onto external websites. So we've now got the benefit chat installed, or the chat service installed onto the benefit calculator, which means as people work through the benefit calculator, they can continue to chat with us, or they can open up a chat if they've got a question, which is the first thing Entitled To have done that. So it's maybe something that other users of Entitled To may actually start using now. We believe we were the first Inverclyde Council in Scotland to actually try and do money and benefit advice through chat. There are other councils such as Highland Council and I believe East Renfrewshire Council which has been doing web chat, but it's mainly been a customer service feature on their website. So Inverclyde Council, I suppose, is the first one that's actually tried to deliver chat through that, and it's really as a pilot project, as it has been a learning curve to see that basically what we're going to be able to do and what level of advice we're going to be able to do. We also were able to secure funding for marketing, because obviously one of the big things about any new digital chat services, you've got to get traffic there, and that's something I had the experience of having previously worked in the private sector and done digital marketing before. So we did put in some money for digital marketing, and we were able to get some funding for that as well as part of the project. At the moment, we're now that's actually today. We are now running a Facebook campaign, and it includes a video that's been created by the Inverclyde Council's Corporate Communications Department. So we're getting a lot of, mainly at the beginning we were getting a lot of organic traffic, particularly from the Scottish Welfare Fund pages, which is part of the advice and benefits section of the council's website. And that's just traffic that's going on the Inverclyde Council's website and then coming onto the chat. But as I say, we're starting to maybe pick up some from the actual paid for marketing, but it's still possibly a wee bit too early to see, you know, how successful that's going to be. At the moment, we're noticing people primarily are accessing it through smartphones, and it's quite surprising. Inverclyde Greenock is soon going to be a Wi-Fi town, or a smart town. So you know that's something which makes it this is quite a good thing to be doing at the moment. But we're noticing a lot of people are actually contacting us through smartphones. A lot of the questions we're getting at the moment, and it's possible because of the organic traffic coming off the Scottish Welfare Fund pages, tends to be in relation to things like universal credit, crisis grants, community care grants. And so we seem to people asking about deductions for obviously universal credit, and whether maybe as a result of that going for the crisis grant. And what we find is that by intervening with people a lot of the time, we're able to advise them sooner, because there can be quite lengthy waiting times on the phones to get through to the Scottish Welfare Fund. But what we tend to find is that by talking to people sooner, we can maybe advise them maybe whether a crisis grant would be appropriate or not, or whether they're likely to be successful, or maybe that they should possibly be asking for an advance of the universal credit, which may be quicker. So that I think has been an interesting part. And I think the most important thing to take to all this is that people are willing to use chat, and I think that's what we weren't really sure about. But there is certainly people out there that will use chat services to ask for advice. The idea eventually will be is we'll expand the content that's available on our website in terms of money advice and start using that resource more. And I think the other thing that's important to note is that people aren't just coming to the chat service as a sort of gateway service to then basically move on to other services or to get an appointment, but people are actually coming on because they want advice effectively. And so it's actually a means of delivering advice. The actual chat service that we've now got on the site, you know, it's got a number of features. It allows multiple clients to chat at once, which can be quite effective, because a lot of the questions are quite repetitive, so you're allowed to have sort of standard responses, which means that, you know, you can actually, you know, if somebody's asking how to apply for a universal credit, how to apply for a crisis grant, we can press a button and it'll give them information. We're also able to direct people to other parts. We can control people's browsers. So if somebody comes on, they want to know about benefit calculation, get the benefit calculation, we can basically direct their browser to the benefit calculator page and then continue chatting with them. And so that's a useful feature. And it does mean that you can possibly deal with multiple clients at once, because they're maybe not, you're not repeating the same information, you're just pressing a key and giving them a standard answer. Now, obviously, sometimes it's going to have to be bespoke advice, but a lot of the time we find that it's just a standard answer, and that allows us to maybe deal with a couple of queries at once if necessary. We can also see who's chatting. If you're a manager, you can monitor the chat, you can allocate the chat to someone else, or you can take the chat yourself over if you feel it's important that maybe you need to intervene and take it over and give more specialised advice. The clients can actually get the chat transcript emailed to them, which is great. So if there's a lot of information and they're not unlikely to remember it, if they put their email address in, as soon as the chat's finished, it gets emailed over to them in full. It's also mobile friendly, and you know, we've tried to make it as frictionless as possible. There is a choice where you can maybe ask people to add in lots of details, etc., before they can chat to you. We've just went for quite simple, a name and a login, or a social media login, which means that people are able to come on quite quickly. And if we're not online at the time, then people are also able to, you know, they can leave a message and we can pick that up later. So it seems to be that I think the main point is that people are willing to use it. It is very much at this very early stages. We're still learning, we're making mistakes. And I think that's the point of a pilot project, and we're also possible finding what level of advice that we can give people as we go through it. But in terms of the actual working group that we set up with and was facilitated by Money Advice Group Scotland, this was part of really one of the things that we said to the Scottish Local Aid Board we'd try and do. We'd share the information we're getting, we'd share our experiences, we'd share what we learn with other agencies, so that possibly they can benefit from our pilot project as well. So in order to try and achieve that, we set up the working group. And that was really to look at how best local authorities can actually then now use technology to possibly to deliver advice services, and also to look at how we can use chat to basically deliver local and national models for delivering advice. One of the good things about chat is when you start using it, you realise that it's actually, we've all got the technology sitting on our desktop, on our desk, and it's laptops, it's computers, so it's relatively cheap. The actual chat service is relatively cheap. I think we pay something like £360 a licence at the moment per person. But there's also the possibility that the councils can actually get that built into their websites, so that would maybe reduce that cost. And then once you've got that, there's the potential to people can basically chat to you immediately through the phone. You can be speaking to them on your laptop. If you need to refer them on to somebody else who's also on the chat, you can allocate the call to someone else. So in a way, what I've found is that the benefits of the chat is it's bringing the services almost closer to people. So rather than making it more remote, it's actually bringing it closer, which I think is the real advantages of the technology. So that's partly what the working groups were looking at, is how we would use, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the chat service. And also, it's to look at how we could possibly implement the Peter Wyman recommendations. And we're looking over those in great detail because it is quite a lengthy document. And the main sort of recommendations of Peter Wyman were that obviously that face-to-face should continue to be widely available. It should be free to client providers should try and, however, commit to a 15% of face-to-face shifting of people from face-to-face to telephone demand, and 20% of people from telephone demand to web chat assisted services. That seemed to me at the time when it came out very ambitious, but I think the idea is that the working group is how can we best do that, and is it going to be possible to learn that? And then obviously the recommendations for Peter Wyman was that sort of channel shift should continue for the next 3 financial years. And also there would be additional funding that's going to be becoming available, which has now, I believe, been devolved to will be devolved to the Scottish Government from January 2019. So some of the ideas that have come out of the working group in terms of how we can improve services to clients is obviously we can use web chat, we can use online bit forms and calculators. I think there's probably a lot of potential in council websites to use a lot more online forums. Particularly, I think, personally, in terms of maybe the welfare fund, where people using telephone services maybe have long waiting times, and I think we've got to start thinking about making our sites more friendly and better utilising maybe online forms and calculators, and try to obviously put benefit calculators onto the websites and stuff to really try and enhance the resources. I think the idea is really we've got to start viewing our websites as a resource. And it's actually a very well used resource in councils. I mean, I've had the chance to look at some of the Google Analytics, sort of the traffic, statistics for Inverclyde Council's websites. And the one thing you notice is that council websites tend to be very well utilised in terms of people going on to them for information. And the most private companies would probably pay a fortune for that kind of traffic, and we're getting it every single day. And I think we really need to start learning to see our websites as a resource that we can utilise more and really sweat that resource to really provide better services for our clients. And the benefits of a lot of this technology, as I say, it's already there. We've got the website services. It's relatively inexpensive. It's easier to access. Most people have now got smartphones. We can embed, take these services, and also face-to-face services, because obviously it's that joined up approach where people how do people contact face-to-face services, and then when they do contact, there's more we can get them to be doing for themselves, like doing benefit calculations themselves online, and then bringing it in, having an experienced advisor looking at it, can maybe getting them to do their own budgeting forms online, and then say bringing that into their first meeting with the money advisor, and can we use these services and even web chat to possibly encourage greater collaboration, because as I said before, one of the benefits of our web chat service is it can be embedded in other sites and external sites, which means you could go on another services site who maybe not have the resources or the time to run a sort of digital service, but if somebody was on their site and they wanted to chat to someone, they could click on it and then they could be speaking to the council's advice and benefits section or the advice services in Inverclyde, and they can actually, therefore, that's a service that other members of our financial inclusion partnership may be able to offer their members, their service users. So really that's the primary thing, is to try and focus more, and and that was the idea of the working group, would focus more on including debt tools and forms onto the actual websites, providing more content. One of the good things about web chat is a lot of the questions you get answered in a sense inform you what clients are coming onto your website for, so that informs what pages you should be including, what information you should be including, and that then has the benefit is that when people do come onto your website, not only do you have these this more relevant information on your website, but you can then transfer people over to that page because you can control their browser, and that means it saves you time, but also lets the client get more detailed information, possibly forms that can help them when they're on your web chat service. And again, the main point I would try to sort of make is I see it as a tool for delivering advice. It's not just a gateway into traditional services. It's not just you go to a web chat service and then we take your phone number and we pass you through to the money advisors who then phone you back. The idea is to really, once they're on chat, try and keep them on chat for as long as possible. But obviously, eventually, some people may want a face-to-face service or may need a face-to-face service, and utilise it to encourage self-help and help people negotiate the website resources. And potentially, there may be future resources, services that we can sort of offer on our websites. So really the whole emphasis has been, rather than trying to always think of the national call centre model for delivering these sort of services, is trying to think how can we use this technology again to bring services back to people, make them more local, make them more sort of closer to people rather than more remote. Try and use them within partnership areas to join up local partnerships, financial inclusion partnerships, and get people to work together. To see how we can avoid duplication and cost. For example, there's 32 councils in Scotland, they've all got websites, we're all producing the same material on those websites. Could we have content banks and stuff and share more information or share more content that we can actually then share between each other and avoid the time and cost of actually producing content? It's also about keeping, it's not being almost it's not been taking a sort of a purist view of this. It's about seeing, people may go on to face-to-face initially, then they may use telephone, then they may use chat, or people may jump between channels all the time as it suits them, but depending on the information. So it's not just web chat. Once you move to web chat, that's you. When you, as part of the charm shift, it's about allowing people different options. And also it's looking at options like things like putting resources like entitlement on it, and that's the other option. The big sort of idea that I sort of discussed at the digital working group is actually what I've described as the entitled to model. And as I said at the beginning, the whole thing about entitled to is it's not actually, when you put it on your, and obviously there is other benefit calculators, but it's not actually an Inverclyde Council or entitled to. It's not actually an Inverclyde Council part of the Inverclyde Council website. If you look at that, if you go onto their website and you go to the advice and benefits section, there's a piece that says what am I entitled to, and if you click on that and then you say start the benefit calculator, it will take you to the entitled to calculator. And what you notice with that is it's not a .gov site, it's a .co.uk site. So you're essentially taking people off the Inverclyde Council website. And what that allows entitled to do is maintain that resource, update it with benefits change. It allows them to update that centrally, but then all the people that are using that website are using their benefit calculator that's updated and maintained. And one of the ideas is obviously we could maybe look at things, doing something like that nationally, where we have an entitled to model where we could actually have a money advice service or a money advice sort of page where the content's all there. We've got the forms, we've got the calculators and stuff on it, and then basically using the entitled to model is allow that other councils to, the 32 councils in Scotland, to use that website, and it would just be made to look as if it's actually part of Inverclyde Council or Aberdeen Council or the South Lanarkshire Council, but in fact it would be a central maintained website, and that means that they could have a lot better quality content on it. It could help reduce costs, and it would then allow all councils in Scotland to really, you know, have a lot better quality content on the site about what money is. But what it also does, and I think the important point is it allows, basically, it capitalises on the amount of traffic that council websites are getting, because people are going on to see about their schools, they're going on to see about their garbage collection. They may, you know, and they may then see something else to click on, and they may want to then see about benefits, and it allows it basically to capitalise on that, which avoids maybe having to, you know, incur all the costs of marketing. So more client inquiries. If we did have something like that, it would allow more client inquiries to be dealt with, hopefully without face-to-face advisors. New face-to-face advisors could be encouraged to do more for themselves to reduce demand. So do benefit checks, income and expenditure checks, credit checks possible as well. It allows us to sweat the existing resources better, and it also allows us to manage almost the service on a national level, but embed it locally. And hopefully, as going forward, we're going to be having sort of more of these discussions in the work with the Digital Advice Working Group. And obviously, some of the ones that we were proposing at the meeting was obviously the idea of maybe whether an entitled to style money advice site could be created, and whether that would allow increased capacity for face-to-face advice.
Thanks very much for that, Alan. As Johanna said, it came as a bit of a surprise to us when we conducted the research to find out that almost as many people said that they would like to use web chat as wanted face-to-face services. So I think it's an excellent example that Alan's presented of how they are delivering face-to-face and web chat services for local people, and really giving them the choice that people say that they want and that they deserve. I think both Johanna and I have mentioned that we have data from a common advice performance management framework, and it's probably remiss of me not to say what that is. Basically, each year we ask local authorities to give us information about the advice services that they fund, that they deliver either themselves or fund others to deliver for them. There's a lot of information we collect, and we produce an annual overview report which will be ready in the next few months. But one of the pieces of information that we do collect is about who is using advice services. And our current stats suggest that just over a quarter of advice service users have children, and about 50% have a disability or a health need. So basically, we know that people who are seeking advice are also likely to be accessing schools and medical centres. And we know that providing advice in trusted locations actually improves accessibility and engagement with services. So we know really that a significant proportion of our clients would, if offered, access services in these ways. I think we all recognise that there will always be a need for face-to-face services. Some people will require that level of support, but what I think we do have to accept is that face-to-face services should be targeted at those who have the greatest need, the most vulnerable groups within our society. There's a lot of myths, perhaps, about different models of advice services being delivered, and using an embedded model or a co-located model. It is possible to provide services in that way using the same staff, provided they have the appropriate training and support. So whilst there may be initial setup costs in terms of mobile and flexible working, it is possible for the same staff to be delivering services in schools or in medical centres rather than in a town centre location, which may not be as appealing to the potential clients. We have evaluated different ways of delivering advice services, and before you are some examples of what we've done. We've looked at medical practices and primary care settings. We've done that in Dundee and Edinburgh and produced a social value report. We've also worked with City of Edinburgh Council to look at how they are supporting trying to deliver advice services in schools and recovery hubs. And again, with City of Edinburgh Council, we've looked at how access to advice services can be embedded in the summer family programmes that they offer. We have done some work, but very limited in relation to advice services from libraries and also from community centres. But this is an area that we would be keen to explore further, because what we're looking at here is how we can look at community-based advice service models. In terms of the evaluation that we did, the methodology that we adopted was that we did a desktop review of what existing research there was. And it will come as no surprise to you to learn that there's a lot of research in terms of the benefits of providing advice services through medical centres and the multiple outcomes that delivers for clients and for medical staff. Because we wanted to look at a local level and what the impact was in the areas that we were focusing on, which were Edinburgh and Dundee, we arranged focus groups of key stakeholders, which included service users, but also service providers and funders. We then conducted individual interviews and we carried out surveys. So that's basically the process that we use. And in all cases, it was an outcomes-based approach to evaluation. So what did we find? Now, I'm going to focus here on the service user outcomes. There were outcomes for lots of others as well, but we're talking here, our customer journey work has been very much about, well, what does the customer think? What's the client experience? For all the services, there were some generic outcomes. It didn't matter where that service was provided, whether it was in a school or a medical centre. Clients reported improved confidence and well-being. And I would imagine that's the same if it's in a town centre location too. That is one of the big benefits that advice services deliver. But interestingly enough, what people also reported was earlier intervention, that their problem was picked up and addressed at an earlier stage. They knew where to go. They'd mentioned it to the doctor could then refer them to an advisor. So it was tackled before it got out of control. We also found that there was improved engagement and increased interaction with other services. People also said that there was less stigma associated with it, and that makes sense. I mean, if you're going into the school, people don't know why you're going there, whether you're going there to see a teacher or an advisor or whatever the problem is. You're just visiting a place that you habitually go and visit. There were also, though, service user outcomes that were specific to different locations. And I suppose if they were the kind of outcomes that funders wanted to realise, then it would be important to ensure that the service was delivered in that location. In terms of the summer holiday programme, something that came as a bit of a surprise in the course of the evaluation was that people reported that they felt that they had increased peer support, that they were engaging with other families during the programme, and they felt more comfortable talking to them, and they could talk to them about their money worries as well, which is something I know people find very challenging as one of the difficult areas. Looking at recovery hubs, it was fed back to us that it enabled the services that are provided in recovery hubs to work closer together. And it was easier sometimes for medical services, for example, if blood tests were required or injections, to link that into an advice service session as well. So one person came along, got access to advice, got their blood test taken at a time that suited them. And it enabled a lot more follow-up than would normally be the case. In terms of primary care settings, research done by GCPH has demonstrated that there is more likelihood of engagement with first-time users. So people who have never used advice services before are more likely to seek advice through attendance at their medical or health centre. And looking at schools, what was reported back to us was that they had improved parental engagement. One of the teachers said that this was in an area of deprivation in Edinburgh, that parents hadn't had a particularly good experience with schools. They didn't necessarily want to engage with the schools, but offering advice made them review the approach that they'd taken to the school, and it did mean that they were more likely to come along to parents' nights or to talk to staff about problems they were experiencing. And we all know the impact of parental involvement on educational attainment. So if parents can be engaged in their schools and their children's education, the long-term future for that child is much more promising. I've included a slide here because as I've said, there's been a lot of research about advice in medical practices and health centres. And as a result of that, the Improvement Service has been given additional resources to try and encourage more local authorities to adopt this approach. And there's a picture here of my colleague. I'm not sure how he's going to feel about me sharing this with you. Roddy Sampson, who is the Welfare Advice Services Advisor. We host his post. We will be having, there is information about the services that can be provided on our website, but we'll also be hosting another webinar on the 7th of December to provide an update on the progress that we're making with rolling out this model further on a Scotland-wide basis. That concludes all the presentations we've got. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions at this point.
Okay, just while we're waiting for any questions to come through, just to remind you, you should have a little box at your right-hand side where you'll be able to send through questions for either Alan or Karen or myself. So in the meantime, I thought I would just mention what the next steps will be. So Karen and I will publish the final report on channel choice and co-located models of advice in December this year. And we would love to include any other examples of innovation or good practice that is happening in your local areas. So if you would like to discuss this or have any examples to share, please contact us. The recording of this and our contact details will be shared after the webinar.
One of the interesting things you were saying there, Karen, about embedding services in schools, we were recently contacted as part of the chat service through the Education Department because they've got a Parents Pay, which is obviously the school lunch. It's a method for parents to pay online, and it's online accounts for the kids to then get the lunches. And what they've discovered, obviously, is they realise a lot of parents are maybe suffering poverty, they've got debt and stuff like that. So they were actually looking for a list of advice services in Inverclyde that they could maybe try and refer some of the parents onto. And one of the things we've actually suggested instead is obviously, in addition to that, is they've got the Parent Pay websites, pages on the council's websites, and they've got pages about school lunches. So we're obviously now putting links onto that about the advice and benefits section, so that rather than actually giving people a piece of paper with a list of different agencies, people can be directed to the school lunch part of the website, and that would then allow them to maybe click and go onto the web chat and they can actually talk to people. So I suppose in some senses it's pretty much the same idea. It's about embedding the advice services onto these sort of websites as well, and having the links in there so that people that's where the people are. It's like on the school pages about school lunches, and that's where the traffic is, and that's really what we want to really take we will try and basically capture that traffic. It's obviously it's another way of accessing people and let people access our services.
I think that's a really great example of how the embedded model doesn't necessarily mean to a member of staff there. As you say, you can look at linking websites and taking that information out to people where they want to access it. Thanks for sharing that.
So we've had a few questions. The first one's for Alan. Was there a cost of embedding entitled to into Inverclyde's website?
The entitled to no, because effectively all it is I don't know how much people know about websites, but it's actually a URL. It's just a domain name, and then it's actually it's like putting any other link onto your website. It's really cheap. The actual entitled to, obviously the package, there is a cost for that. But I believe entitled to actually have they have the calculator on their own website, so you can obviously get your own one, and it's obviously very branded, and it looks like it's Inverclyde Council's website or whatever council's. But entitled to actually have the benefit calculator on there, and effectively, if you look at it, what it is, it's really just a link. So that's something any IT department should be able to do, really, or any of your website developers should be able to do. Obviously, if you want to get the entitled to package, that'll cost, but as I say, entitled to do operate the benefit calculator on their own website anyway for free, and anybody can access it at any time. So you could just put a link to theirs if you don't have the entitled to package.
The next question is, how successful is the uptake of the web chats, and how are you measuring success? Well,
the great thing is about the web chat is that in terms of reports and stuff like that, it's all inbuilt into the software. So you can get all these analytical reports. You can get them sent daily, which I do, and I regret ever doing it. You can get all the record of all the chats and all the surveys, because people click on a survey at the end. In terms of the uptake, we had an initial real surge. We had an initial quite successful uptake. I don't know if that was an audit factor or, obviously that's been down. I've got to be honest, and at the moment, in the last couple of weeks, it's sort of been really, it's sort of went down again. I'm not overly concerned about that, because I say it's a pilot project. I think what we possibly need to do is look at our marketing again, in terms of we have been running a great video, fantastic video, which I would think is a really good awareness raising video, but it's maybe not getting enough click-throughs immediately, so it's almost maybe we may need to change our advertising. So instead of running just advertising the fact that we've got a web chat service, possibly maybe a more campaign based sort of marketing campaign. So things like, if you're getting deductions for universal credit, contact us, and you can chat to one of the advisors. So we know what the big issues are, know what people are facing, because we see them every day. And maybe what I'm thinking now is we may need to maybe change our marketing campaign to sort of focus it around these big issues. And I think marketing is a big part of the running a website service, because you really need to get the traffic. So at the moment, I think we're sort of in a wee bit of a lull, and I'm hoping that we can maybe obviously adjust to that, and that's part of the learning experience. That's the way to see it, and maybe putting more content onto our websites as well, because I think the other side is that we've not really got a lot of content on in terms of money advice on the website, and I think we really need to start. That's part of the project, but we really need to see about developing that. So it is a learning stuff. So I think the important thing I think to take is that people will use it. We even had a 75-year-old on it looking for a winter fuel. They run an Inverclyde Council funds through iHeat, otherwise group 75, or if you're over 75, you get an extra £75 towards your fuel. And we had a 75-year-old on it, so it shows that a lot of the sort of presumptions about age and who will use it, I don't think any of them are really true. I think so. It's still learning.
So, roughly how many people use it per day? And
at the moment, it can vary. I mean, I think some days we get none, to be honest with you, right? And that's just to be honest. Some days we can get maybe 7 or 8. Do you know what I mean? I think overall, I think the first month we probably seen about 80 or something like that. So at the moment, I think it's pretty much try to develop it. And as I say, I think we need to look at our advertising basically. But I think the key thing is we need to learn to develop it more and use it more, basically, or market it better.
do you know how many people come in? So they've used the benefit calculator, and if they come for advice, or are they mostly just web users? And then
I'll be honest. I've not looked at the statistics for the benefit calculator. I can access them. Do you know what I mean? But I've not looked at them recently. What we tend to do, I mean, we can pull the reports, but I've not looked at it. I think one of the benefits is what we have tried to do is maybe when we've been getting, we work with a legal services agency, so we may get people coming in for evictions and quite quick referrals, and the client needs to go to court. Or the solicitor will be going to court, sorry, for the eviction, and they're wanting a financial statement, and they're wanting we need to obviously do a benefit calculator. And sometimes it's difficult to get the clients in, and sometimes what we've been asking people is, can you do the benefit calculator yourself online, or we'll do it over the phone with them and do it on ourselves. And I think we save time that way, because every time somebody comes in for a benefit calculation, it's taking up an advisor's time for half an hour, and it's taking up a room for half an hour. And rooms are probably like gold dust in Inverclyde. A lot of these kind of councils now are now down to hot desk kind of stuff like that. The rooms have become like gold dust, and so every time you get somebody in for a benefit calculation, then also it's half an hour. Maybe that room's blocked out, or it's half an hour advisor. So I think the key thing is trying to get people onto that can save actual time and money, but time and space. But the other side of that is that's not to say that obviously it doesn't need somebody to look over it. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, people with disabilities, it may be stuff, but it's probably a lot quicker to look over a benefit calculation and spot where maybe there's further work needing done than it is possible to start from scratch. So I think the idea is to try and get people to use it, but some people are quite happy. Other people, I mean, it just depends. But I do probably need to look at the stats. I know some councils. I mean, I know, for example, I'm not going to mention the council, but I know some councils that have got, they've got huge numbers going to using the benefit, who also have entitled to it, because we're obviously not the only council. But what they also find is a lot of staff use it. So it's not just the benefit advisors that are using it. Once the staff are knowing it, and so any staff that are actually, that are dealing with clients, they can use the benefit calculator as well. So they actually they've got huge numbers. You know, I mean, and there's one council in particular that I'm aware of who they've had it embedded for quite a long time, and it's widely used to say with staff as well as clients, and so they've got quite impressive numbers.
How is Inverclyde managing having online advisors ready when people need them or have the time to chat? So, for example, outside working hours or in the evening or at night?
Well, at the moment, obviously, we're restricted. I mean, because obviously we've only got one advisor at the moment, and I actually think, you know, the thing with this is probably the lesson is you know, it can actually, you can probably Karen was mentioning earlier, you can probably utilise existing staff a lot as well, but we do have a one advisor at the moment. So obviously we're lucky in that sense, as we've always got somebody on it at the moment. In terms of out of hours and after hours, at the moment we don't have that facility to, you know, do that. So what we do is leave a message, and people can leave a message, and people have been leaving messages as well. So that it does show that people will use it. But the other potential for this is if you did have something like this and it was very successful, you know, you could have staff working at night, you know, without actually having them in the office. They could have it in their laptops in their house working at night. So that potential, and that maybe has, that could maybe have benefits for councils, not just for advice, but also for customer services. That, you know, you can have services available, you know, out of hours and stuff like that by just giving people obviously the laptops, and if that was something, you know, that's part of their hours, they don't even need to be in the office to be doing it. And I've done chat through working at home, so that's probably the best thing about it. You know, you can actually stay at home and actually do it while you're doing it.
Yeah, and there's been an example that Carrick Council elected members use entitled to in their surgeries.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's and that's part of the thing. I mean, we have tried to promote it and advertise it. I tried to tell them the financial inclusion, so the partnership to you about it. And I think that's the thing. It's yeah. I actually do one council, the one I'm thinking of, that's actually really high numbers. I think a lot of their benefit staff use it, and their council tax staff use it. So, you know, as a quick way of doing a benefit calculation. You know, customer service staff use it. So I think it's how well you encourage and promote it within your organisation. As you say, that elected members can use it rather than actually making a referral, because it may take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get an appointment, and then it's taking up half an hour's time, and it's picking up a valuable resource, which is the actual office space.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Lots of good questions coming through for Alan. We just want to take the opportunity to thank everyone who signed into the webinar today. The webinar recording and the slides will be shared with everyone that registered afterwards, and also on our YouTube channel and the Knowledge Hub. So thank you very much for logging on today.